A life without insulin is something that many of us fear. Many of us with type 1 diabetes going for days underground without our supply is something that we couldn't even imagine. I have a fridge full, stocked of insulin. And if I had to leave without that, I don't know what I would do. But that's the situation that many of our brothers, sisters, friends are facing in Ukraine right now. And getting insulin to them is our main focus right now. So joining me is Joe Fox, who has some experience with getting insulin to places that don't necessarily have that well of a supply. But it's a different situation this time, Joe, because, you know, with the Penzi Trust, you're sort of raising funds in order to purchase insulin, but this most pressing problem that we've got right now, it's more of a logistics issue, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's different. You know, my son is type 1 diabetic and has been for 8 years. And like you say, we've got a fridge full of insulin, a cupboard full of supplies, and I just can't imagine what it's like to not have that, or to fear not having that, or to not have that next week or next month. We can only live a few days without insulin, so that's a really scary thought for me. And yeah, with Penzi Trust, we've sent funds, and our clinic in India can buy anything that it needs locally. The difference this time is that, you know, to some extent, the people just need help in the short term before we can deal with the long term. And that's what I found different. Penzi Trust funds sustainable initiatives rather than sending insulin, you know, directly out there. That's just solving a short-term problem. So what situation I found the people of Ukraine are in that they need some short-term help before we can even put longer-term help into place, because we obviously don't know what that long-term help looks like yet.
Yeah, and let's just talk about, you know, life with type 1 diabetes, and let's imagine that we're in that same situation, because what would we grab and what would we take to, you know, if we had to walk hundreds of kilometres across to the western border? I can't imagine what I would grab and would have time to grab, and how I would keep that safe. It really is a dire situation for the people who are transiting that incredible distance.
Yeah, I think my son has what we call his day bag with his day-to-day supplies in. So that's just what he needs today, or what he needs for a few hours if we go out. And I think if I suddenly had to flee with no notice, which is exactly what happened, I don't know if I'd even remember in the panic to take even his day supplies. If I went to the fridge to grab some extras, I don't know if I'd have enough there, if I'd have the right types of insulin. I can't imagine what I'd do, because thankfully so far I've never been in that situation. But it's hard enough, you know, on a day-to-day basis, managing supplies and having the right equipment at the right time. So for me, it's complete solidarity with other people that are living with this, that I felt motivated to help.
And Joe, you've been hearing a lot of stories and analogies of people on the ground in the affected area. And when we spoke previously, the stories that you told me were quite harrowing. I wonder if you could just share a few of the situations that you've been hearing about.
Yeah, I mean, just generally, you know, I've met people who only inject twice a week.
Twice a week?
Twice a week. Type 1 diabetics that only inject twice a week.
Is that because they're rationing supplies, or?
Stacked in insulin. I met a young man, a teenage boy, who'd not long been diagnosed, and he had one vial of insulin and a syringe. And I met him when he was maybe 2 or 3 months into his diagnosis, and he was still using the same syringe and the same vial of insulin, and he was basically asleep. He was very close to DKA, as you can imagine. But yeah, he was trying to make that vial of insulin last forever because he knew that his family couldn't afford more.
Is it an affordability issue, or is it just getting it? Because you know, the issue is out there that a lot of places are quite hard to get to.
I think the issue with that boy was affordability of the insulin. It was available locally, but a lot of the people I've worked with live in poverty, so they just haven't got the funds to buy it. And that's where we take the longer term approach with, fund insulin in short term, but fund education or business startup in the long term.
I mean, with a humanitarian crisis and one of the biggest refugee issues that we've probably had to face within living memory, there's going to have to be a long-term problem, but the immediate issue is the short-term delivery of insulin to the people that need it, and delivery of insulin in war zones, potential zones of conflict, and there is a nationwide effort to address that problem.
Yeah, definitely. And like I say, it's solving the problems people of Ukraine are having, because we can supply some supplies as such for them to use now, and that's what the risk is. They're at risk of not having insulin in 2-3 days time, whereas we can help address that. And like I say, no one knows what's going to happen, but we can address the longer term issue when we've got more understanding of what the long term issues are.
And what have you been hearing from Ukraine? What are the stories and the situations that you've been hearing?
I've seen stories online of people requesting insulin for their baby who was type 1 diabetic, and I've seen a story of an old man who lived in a care home who was insulin dependent and didn't have any insulin. So I just can't imagine what it's like to be in that situation, which is why I've set up and helped get involved with getting insulin out there for now.
And how does your son feel about the situation? Because I know, as a type 1 diabetic person myself, I feel quite, it breaks my heart thinking about how my life would be in that situation. How does your son feel?
He feels the same. He's nearly 15 and he's very much in denial at the moment that he's diabetic, and I'll be honest, not fully looking after himself. But what I've found this week is that it's actually motivated him to get engaged in the diabetes community. He's helped me unpack and pack boxes and post things off. He's offered to do some sort of online promotion of what we're doing. So I've actually found it's helped him engage with diabetes community a bit, and that's purely because of how he feels, how he knows how dangerous it is to not have insulin. So I found it quite positive from a personal point of view, but yet we're all as a family horrified at the situation and what's going on.
And sometimes it does take a situation like that to, allow yourself to realise how lucky you are in your situation. But Joe, so you are a collection point essentially for some diabetic supplies, and they will be hopefully heading down to Kent and then on to Ukraine. How can people get in touch with you if they want to share their supplies and things that they have?
If you type facebook.com/JoeFox42, you'll come to my personal page, and you won't have to look very far to find my home address. If you live in or near Leeds, I can maybe collect, or you could drop off at my house. I'm in Batley, just outside of Leeds. So people have literally been leaving things at my doorstep. They've been posting to me, and then, I've already sent the first package down to Kent, and I've seen pictures of goods being loaded onto trucks, and the first truckload has now set off just yesterday and made its way over.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much, Joe, and I'm so proud of our community in the effort that we're bringing. Thank you so much, Joe. And if you do wanted to get in touch with Joe, you've heard there how easy it is to get involved and to share whatever supplies you have surplus. And myself, I'm in the southwest, and it's not too hard either to find where I am. But if you wanted to drop off some stuff at my house, then do find me on Instagram at jamie.lowe TV. I'm all across across social media at jamie.lowe TV, and you can get in touch with me there, and we can arrange a pickup if you aren't able to bring it to my house. I'll come and get it from you, and I'll get it down to Kent. That is my promise. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. Do share and subscribe. Do like and follow. And for everything else, make sure you're here on the next day, because we've got lots of these episodes coming out this week. So do join us for another chat with actually someone who's from Ukraine, who is supporting a network of diabetics out there right now. She's called Lena, and she's going to be joining me on the podcast next time. See you then.